Okay, welcome to One Stop Co-op Shop. This is Steve here with Kim.
Hi, everybody.
We're here not to play a game, but to talk about a game.
Still exciting.
Still exciting,
Don't worry
exactly.
about it.
So this will be on our live YouTube stream channel, but it will also be a podcast. So hopefully we get the information either way. But today we're going to be talking about Assassin's Creed because we just got done playing the full campaign.
Yes, we did. It was a long one.
It was a long one.
It takes long when you play once a week.
Correct.
And then skip a week here or there.
Correct.
So it's all right.
Yeah, so we're going to be doing a review of it, and it's going to be top 5 format. So if you're not familiar with that, we talk about the 5 things you need to know about the game, and then that section will be spoiler free. But then afterwards, we'll talk about some other topics that we did not cover in the top 5 that will not be spoiler free. We'll get into some spoiler territory. So right now, you're totally fine listening in. If you don't want to hear any spoilers, you should be fine. The stuff we're going to talk about is pretty generic, and then after that, we'll get into some fun details.
Okay.
But first, we want to talk about the giveaway.
Yes. You know, you win some, you lose some, Steve.
Yep.
I mean, we didn't get any signups technically for this one. That's fine. We just got to figure out what people like, But Steve, we were talking like, well, we could give the game away. We played the campaign, but then you're like, well, no, there's more things to play. And so he vetoed that.
Well, yeah, I think we can probably do another copy of the game at some point.
Okay.
But yeah. So we'll be sending these Assassin's Creed miniatures to some of our frequent viewers.
Yeah, Ryan and Dan, thank you. Mm-hmm. You'll be getting them. I did paint this one white, and it looks kind of like plaster. That's kind of cool. And this one's gray. So we'll just let you guys figure out what you want it to look like.
That's right. Right.
Or if we can't, well, we've already talked to them.
Yeah.
Right? They know it's coming. Okay.
They know it's coming.
All right. Because you could say, I don't even want that because nobody signed up.
That's no, right. They do. They do.
Okay, good. Good.
Okay, but let's jump into the review. Like I said, top 5 format, talk about our 5 things you need to know about this, starting with the least important, working way to the most important. So, starting with number 5, and this is a joint list for both of us.
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the fact that you think a whole lot more analytically about games and like reviews, and I just kind of just feed off of what you say, and then I'll interject my opinions.
Oh, it's totally fine.
Okay.
So number 5 will be a pro, and that is playtime. I mean, specifically about this is when we sat down to play a memory, and a memory is the same thing as a mission in this game, it generally took us for 2 players like anywhere from 45 minutes to 60 minutes. I would feel like that was pretty common.
I think so.
Yeah. Now, setup, that's not including necessarily setup and some others. I mean, even that was including some strategy talk and planning in that discussion. So it actually plays really fast. It plays fast enough where if we weren't streaming this, I would totally play the game back to back. Back memories, absolutely.
I could see that.
But it was nice that it didn't feel like it overstays welcome at all. Like we're in there, we're playing the game. It was engaging the whole time, and I just really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, because it's funny you mentioned that where it's like not overstaying its welcome. Because we played a game recently, and I was like, I'm done, and we were maybe like halfway through, and yeah, I think an hour play, you can move on. I liked it.
Yeah. Now, that is the play time for each individual memory. Of course, the campaign is longer. The campaign is, we just looked it up, is 26. Yeah, 26 possible missions memories. You may not or will not play them all, depending on how you approach it. So it'll vary a little bit for that. Mm-hmm. But yep, number 5, full on pro, playtime. Loved it. Okay, let's move on to number 4. This one is a con. And this is one that I have heard from others, and I completely agree. It is the enemy variety.
Mm-hmm.
So in every memory, you have max, well, with some exceptions, we will get that later, but you basically have max 2 enemy types. That's it. And one of the one of the enemies is always the crossbowman.
Yep. Hey, Nick.
Hi, welcome, Nick.
Yeah.
And so this one was a pretty big negative for me, I think. Because it was just like, well, it's always the crossbowman and an
something
elite.
Else.
Yes, something else. We won't get into the details of what that something else is
yet
for spoilers. Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, the fact that there were only 2 enemies, no matter what the case may be, on the mission, I kind of wanted more.
Yeah, you do. More variety in that. Now, the silver lining that this kind of is a sort of pro in that you don't need to grab out all the miniatures. For example, something like Reichbusters we played. We've got a ton of miniatures just on the board and going everywhere. This one, I just know it's always crossbowmen and something else. So it was a little bit easier stuff in that regard. But
I mean, if they would have done like you could have kept just the two enemies, but if they would have evolved over the series of missions, maybe that would have helped. But it was always the same. Now that being said, when you wrap it all up, there is an opportunity to
there's something. Spoilers.
Play again in another manner. Yeah. But we'll get there.
Right. But yeah, that's the main thing. And I kind of understand it because the crossbowman, you need some type of ranged attacker, and that is always the crossbowman, and then the elite was your melee attacker. And so I understand that, but like I said, it still would be nice. That's my number 4 con, enemy variety. Moving on to number 3. You know it's coming on this list at some point, and here it is. The pro, and that's stealth.
For you.
Gotta talk about stealth. Gotta talk about it.
I mean, if you're playing a mace-wielding woman that's just smacking him, that was the first part of, like, the first half of my campaign. I was like, I don't care about noise.
That's fair. Well, we're talking about, like, the opportunities of stealth in this game.
Yeah, you can't be. I say that because I, then eventually learned, hey, I'm actually an assassin. I should be quiet,
So there's a lot of different ways it happens in this game. So there's hiding spots in the game, and these aren't spoilers. This is you learn about this in the rule book, of course.
Well, and it really plays nicely on the actual video game. Like you can go jump in that hay bale, and be chill. I do wish they had like the bench where you could sit down and like melt into the crowd. They didn't have that, but that's okay.
Yeah, there's only a few limited hiding spots on the board, which is fine. It works out. You can use them. Climbing towers and roofs.
Yep.
Rooftops. That was in there. You can definitely use that to get away.
Jump into that little not a hut, but
Yeah, the hiding spot, whatever it's called. I can't remember what it's called. But yeah. And then the enemies will hunt you down too. So if you're spotted and you run away from them, half the group will follow you to the next spot, and then half of them will follow you to the next spot. And it's half rounded up. So eventually, one person will always be running with you. And so that's where you can jump on a rooftop, and they won't be able to follow you. And it feels
lose your tail.
Exactly.
It's really cool in the way they did that.
Yeah, and it opens up opportunities for cooperation as well, where like I can bring enemies to you to do a massive attack, for example. So I like that a lot from the stealth aspect. The other aspect is you need to hide the bodies, which seemed very Assassin's Creed-esque, right? So
you don't need to. It helps.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, if they happen to see their comrade on the ground, something's up.
There's a lot of items, events, and special abilities that trigger that too. I won't get into details here, but some of that is spoiler territory. But you can obviously manipulate the stealth ability there. The dice results was a cool one. So when you move into an area, an enemy moves into your spot, you need to do a stealth check. And the difficulty of the stealth check is going to be dependent on if the alarm is going on or not. Which seems very thematic. I like that. If the alarm's going on, they're more observant, so there's a greater likelihood to find you.
Something's awry, and they have to, find out what's going on.
Now, that is another thing I'll bring up, because I feel like when talking about stealth in these games, a lot of people talk about the alarm as being stealth. But the alarm is just the difficulty of stealth, but it's not stealth as well. We played a lot of games with alarms ringing.
It's ringing the whole time.
But we were still in stealth, right? So.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit, it's a difference. I just want to point that out, that the alarm and stealth are kind of different things in this game.
The alarm, like you said, the alarm state just makes it a little bit harder.
Right.
The enemies, if they see you, they're coming for you.
Right.
But otherwise, you can still hide, and you do have to be a little more careful about how you move.
I do want to talk about one other thing about the stealth is because you're using miniatures, in order to mark you're in stealth, you have to put red rings on the miniature. Yeah. And so it's in the book, it tells you to take off your colored ring that you're playing to mark your character and put the red ring on, and then swap back when you're back in stealth. We never did that.
No, we just put the ring on as a hat.
Yeah.
It was fine. But that doesn't bother me. I think that's more of a you thing, that it's a nuisance that you don't like.
Right. Yeah. It didn't really bother me either. Like, okay, put on the head, no big deal. It's marking, it's doing the job. But I would not put it on the base because Nick says you have to do it. Exactly. Because it's unnecessary work to take that on and off. It's just not worth it. Plus, there's times where you go into stealth and out of stealth quickly. And just make it easy for yourself. But yeah, that was me. 3 as a pro is stealth. That was a good one. Okay. Moving on to number 2. Number 2 is a con.
I'm glad I didn't even get to experience this. The way that you described it
Yes.
Yeah, I'm glad I
This
was nowhere near this.
I was frustrated. This is a huge con for me for this game, and that is the tutorial memories. I'm gonna call them tutorial memories because it basically like puts you on rails, and it drove me nuts. I played these with my son without you,
Yeah.
and I kind of did it intentionally because I was like, oh, I was reading the rulebook, like this is what we're supposed to be doing, and like,
Well, and it was smart because you know me in the sense where if it's like you introduce this to me and it is crap, it's gonna take some negotiating to get me back to the table
right.
to be like, you really want me to play this again? As bad as you made it sound. Not saying I won't give games a second try or anything, but this the way that you described it was like this is the worst thing ever.
And it was particularly difficult for us because we played a lot of V Sabotage, which previously called V Commandos, and so the base of Assassin's Creed has a lot of similarities to that game, and we'll do a video comparing them in the future here. But I guess we had this strong base, and so this tutorial missions were it's like, well, I already know what's going on. Let's get to it already.
Okay, well, let me ask you this way.
Yeah.
If you wouldn't have had that V sabotage experience, would the tutorials still been terrible or would they have actually been helpful and good? Would you've had a different opinion on them?
No, I say that
Okay.
because there's a tutorial, like the enemies aren't in the first one or two of them at all. They're just like moving around the map, and at some point the enemies appear, but they don't even move. And
So it's like a snail crawl to try to get you to
it's
figure it out.
basically a puzzle. Like you just move around, and it's to get. I understand what they're doing. They're trying to get you to understand how you can move around, how you can tactically position yourself to do that. But like the V Sabotage rulebook, it has that in there, but it's a separate puzzle you can do. It's not like required for the campaign. And this one, I feel like it's required because you get experience and you unlock things, and those will or continue on into campaign or the memory 1.1, where I consider the actual game starting.
Okay.
So like 0.1 to 0.4 is the tutorial missions, and so this was a big negative for me. I do think you have to play them just to figure out how much experience you have, what items you get, but I kind of think my preference is I would just fast track it. I would just make an assumption. Okay, you know what? We have this much experience and these items, and we'll just go from there.
Well, how would you even know, like fresh out of the game, how do you even know what's the normal going rate?
You
Wouldn't
wouldn't.
you want to look in the book and be like, let's pretend
Yeah.
we did this and just look at the book and say, we're going to start with XYZ?
Yeah, you wouldn't know that at the first go. When you first play through, you have to play through tutorials, in my opinion. But on replays, you can say, okay, let's fast track past that stuff because it's not
Okay.
value add at this point.
Okay.
So that's
All
a
right.
big con for
Well,
me.
we murdered that one. So what's next?
Next, number one pro, and this was a hard one to describe, and I'm going to describe it as opportunities for clever play.
Hmm.
Um,
So
oh,
maybe,
we get some questions. So I'm going to get to the questions in a second from online here, but let's go to the pro opportunities for clever play. So this one
well,
is
I'm going to interrupt you because
go
Nick
ahead.
is thinking, he says online tells you how to start on a BGG thread at 1.1.
Oh, thank you. So
So you can skip the tutorial, just check out BGG and
okay, there you
they'll
go.
do that. Thank you, Nick.
I do recommend doing that then. Very, very.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I'm gonna answer your question, DVC Bear, after this.
Yep.
So I'll
Hang
get to
on.
you. Thank you for the questions. Okay. So opportunities for clever play is my number one pro. And what I mean by that is I felt like there's a lot of times when we are strategizing and playing this tactical element where like, oh, that's a really great idea. We can use the environment to our advantage or position ourselves in this way or use these abilities to really give us a leverage over the enemy and achieve the mission goals.
There was a lot of that. I thought that was really cool. The way that our players,
Hmm.
abilities can kind of help each other, or you know, even if you're on the other side of the board, we can still plan ahead and be like, I'm going to draw the enemy over here.
Right.
You even at one point, I don't think this is spoilery, but you dropped a bomb, and we kind of manipulated everything to make it work for the both of us. So that was really smart, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, I really like those opportunities. You can do a lot with the game in that sense, and I'll get into more of that in the spoiler section because there's a lot of things we could talk about. But I won't leave it at that. There's just with the stealth aspect of it and the events and how you can move around the board, you can do a lot with it. So
Yeah, I think it's a very good cooperative game. I don't know if
definitely,
I'd do this one solo. You did this some of these solo, right?
I played the tutorial mission solo
Well, that's
because
a crapshoot. So you
yeah,
didn't like that one, but
no,
would you do the campaign solo? Or would you play multiple characters? I think you would want multiple
You
characters.
have to play 2
Okay.
assassins. So
Okay.
yes, yeah, it's best cooperative for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, so those are the top 5. So we got just recap: number 5 pro, the playtime; 4 con, enemy variety; 3 pro being the stealth. The stealth's very good. 2 the con, tutorial memories; and then number 1 pro, opportunities for clever play. Like you, I think that's how to summarize it. And I know we've got some questions, so let's jump
Yeah.
to some questions on the chat.
Well,
So
Nick is saying the solo with 3 to 4 characters allows for more clever tactical play. I think that's interesting. I don't know if I'd want to personally manage 3 or 4 players,
well, this is Nick
but
we're talking about. Nick, he
he's a
plays
beast.
he plays six Spirit Island by
Oh my
himself.
god,
So yeah.
my brain would hurt, Nick. I didn't do that.
But
All
to
right.
answer DVC Bear's
DVC
question,
Bear's question. What is your take on the importance of the minis?
not important at all. In fact, this ties into a little bit of the after talks. So I'm going to let's go into, well, we don't have the spoilers section yet, but we'll get to that in a second. I'll be very clear on that.
How does talking about minis spoil it though?
Because there's boxes, hidden boxes, miniatures. So, but I think I talk about as well, touching on that. There's the Assassin's Creed box is huge, and it's honestly mostly just minis. There's envelopes in there. That's a good section of it, and there's obviously dice and cards and stuff like that in there. But a huge portion of the box is miniatures. And do I think it's important to the gameplay? No, I don't. I think it. You disagree?
I like them.
Okay.
If I wasn't presented with them at all, I don't think I would miss them.
Okay.
But I think they're pretty cool and they look really nice.
Okay. Because the game is very expensive with the miniatures.
That's true. Which is why I said, if you would have said, "Hey, here's a game and here's these tokens," because that's what V Sabotage is, and that one's great. I like that game too,
Right,
with the
right.
tokens. The enemies are the tokens, but the heroes are the minis, right?
No, it's all tokens in that
It's all
one.
tokens.
All
I'm
tokens.
just not remembering things properly. Okay. Yeah. So I mean, it's a nicety. It is not important
No,
to play the game.
I
I would agree with that. Yes. But now that I have them, I don't want you to take them away, type of thing,
right. The only thing you need to keep track of for the miniatures is if they're standing up, they're a normal acting enemy. If they're lying down, they're a body. And you can do that with a miniature or a standee. Either way, it's not
Or
a
a
problem.
token, you like flip your tokens over, and
Or
it has
flip-
the different icons on it.
Yep.
So yeah.
Exactly. That's all you really care about. So for the retail version of this, I think this would be a great retail option. I'm actually very excited they presented that. So just to fill people in, if they're not familiar with it, this was a Kickstarter. I can't remember when it came out for Kickstarter, but it was a big miniature heavy Kickstarter, and that was the only copy available. But now they're doing a retail version, which is, I believe, I'm not positive it's all standees, or if the assassins are miniatures and all the enemies are standees. I'm not sure exactly, but it's gonna be mostly standees in there with, as far as I understand, the same exact gameplay, and so you can play with that price point, which I think will be a big pro.
That's cool. Yeah.
So, Nick is here chatting with us. So, my biggest con was one of the spoiler aspects. Maybe number 1 con. Expectations were too high, maybe, though.
So I think we're going to get into the spoiler territory. What else do you want to touch on before we get there? I mean, there's so much more of the game that we haven't talked about. If I'm not about to say the word headquarters, does that mean anything? Can we talk about
we can
that?
talk about headquarters.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can talk about that as well. Yeah, we'll answer your question, Nick, in a second. Get on the spoiler territory. But yeah, let's talk about the other things about the game. So we've already covered our top 5. If that's all you wanted, feel free to hang on for more stuff.
Okay.
Making it awkward, I know.
I know.
Headquarters. Yeah. So this is one that I think is going to be a mix for people. Yes. I was pleasantly surprised.
You love the thing. And then other people were like, this is the stupidest addition. Like, why do I have to manage this whole system over here outside gameplay?
So let's talk about what the headquarters is. So when you sit down to play a memory in the game, a memory is a mission, of course. Before you actually play the game, you have to manage your headquarters. So there's a whole other board where you can choose to put your assassin apprentices on the board. You can put other characters on the board. You actually have special characters depending on which headquarters you pick. So I won't get into details of that one. Yeah. But long story short, you have a hospital if you want to heal people in there. You have a storage room to just keep your keep all your gear in it, which you don't really use for assigning people. You have a shopping area so you can go get more supplies. You have a contract area, which is a mini mission itself, and then you have a ability to construct your own equipment. Workshop, yeah.
Yeah.
And so that. You're welcome. No, it's fine. And so you need to figure out which characters you want to keep at the headquarters and which characters you want to keep off, not in the headquarters, which you can use in the mission itself.
So I think it was the way that they designed the missions and how you interact with the headquarters was nice.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that extra effort that I think is kind of a turnoff. I mean, but if you don't do that there and you don't utilize your hospital, we probably would have died a couple times, you know? So the way that the game is designed, it's needed, but yeah, I think it's going to be a big, you know, flip the coin if you like it or not type of thing.
Yeah, and I think I'm trying to say here, I know you're saying that it's not necessary, or you're saying it's necessary for the game, but like I can see a lot of people saying, "Well, I don't. This is not the reason why I'm sitting down to play. I don't want to do this." It's almost like worker placement aspect of it,
is
right?
Worker placement, but you don't have to spend 30 minutes figuring it out. Sometimes we did because that's just the way our brains work.
No, we only took like 10 minutes max. I did all the timestamps. Trust me.
Okay, fine. It just feels longer sometimes when I'm.
That's fair.
So yeah, it's not a ton of time, but yeah, it's yeah, like you said, it's worker placement when you're not actually playing a worker placement game.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, that's fair.
But yeah, I liked it. I think a lot of people won't like it, and probably a mix or a con for a lot of people. So just be aware of that.
But again, it's not a huge aspect of the gameplay.
No, it's pretty quick. You do that, you start playing, you come back to it to resolve it. It's pretty fast. It takes maybe 15 minutes total of the whole playtime. And when I talk about the 45 minutes to an hour playtime, that 10 minutes is in there for the headquarters as well. Okay. So it's a fast playing game. Okay, let's see what other things we talk about. Let's talk about cooperation real quick, because I think this is a big one.
This is a big pro. We kind of talked about that.
We talked about it a little bit, but there's more aspect to it. One of the biggest things I loved about this is the coordinated strike. So what this means is if we can all target the same area, we can then spend actions simultaneously, and then combine all our results to one attack against the enemies, which seemed really thematic for assassins who are trained to do these coordinated strikes, and it was a fun new element to the tactical play.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I liked it enough where like I kind of want to try and see if it works for V-Sabotage.
Sure.
I mean, what happens.
Like a big part of this game cooperatively is you don't take your actions. You take your actions in any order, and you can split it up. You don't have to do like all your 3 actions, and then I have to do all mine. No, it's whatever works for whatever the heck you want to do.
I love that flexibility in play. It makes it really interesting, engaging for sure.
Yeah, because I might want to move over here to prep something, and then you're gonna come follow suit, you know, and it's plant the bomb, you know, and then you trigger it, and then you don't blow me up or something like that. So.
But yeah, the other thing too about the cooperation is the splitting damage, which is another thing. Where if you're together on a space and you get attacked, well, guess what? As long as the damage gets dealt, the total doesn't matter who takes it. So maybe you got more health, you can take it for me, help me live a little bit longer, for example.
Yeah, I was the meat shield in many cases.
You were. And then there were also skills that helped impact other characters as well, which we won't go into details here for spoiler stuff. So, okay. One of the other things maybe I'll leave this for spoiler stuff. Okay, you know what? Let's just do it. We've been waiting for a while.
I didn't realize, but he has a 2-page Word document that he's referencing, and it's all bullet points. It's very organized, Steve.
I have a lot to share.
You know.
Okay, so if you're listening or watching, now's the time, if you want to avoid spoilers, to turn off the stream or turn off the audio. We're going to get to all the good stuff now, so you've been warned. Okay, spoiler tags up.
All right, Nick, I kind of want to know what your number 1 con was.
So let's go back to that. Yeah, so I think he had to do with...
Scroll down. There it is.
Yes. The biggest con was one of the spoiler aspects, maybe number 1 con. I think he's talking about he had really high expectations that the spoilers were going to be significant, like have significant changes. And I think I just get what Nick's getting at, because in most of the cases, the boxes you open are just miniatures. And it's mostly just like, oh, here's this character. I think it's a spoiler from the intellectual property aspect of it. If you play the games, you're like, oh, there's that character. I know him from the video game. oh, he's a really bad guy or whatever. And that's the spoiler aspect of it. I didn't know he was going to be in the game. I didn't know he was going to be the bad guy. So I can see that as being the element of surprise. But if you don't have that, or it's not a strong connection, I think that would be lacking.
Okay, I can understand that.
I think the biggest spoiler surprise was when we went back to the modern age and had those missions, because that kind of completely changed the game in those mission memories.
I didn't even like those.
Well, we didn't like them for a specific reason though,
Yeah.
and the reason was because it was a split map, and then in other versions of the game where you do have a split map, you can actually work on one together and then go to the other one together, or a split map, or somehow you can cross over and meet up with each other.
Hmm.
But because this is the present and the past, there's no
There's
way.
no interaction, so it's like
Correct.
I was alone on my own, back in history, and then there Steve was with like a not a ray gun, but off
Yeah,
in the future, and it was two different games. I felt kind of entirely going on.
right. I agree. So that I think is a very good con that I think a lot of people might run into for sure. I I don't think it bothered me as
Yeah.
much because the gameplay was so good. I wasn't expecting big surprises necessarily.
Well, yeah, I mean the box opening. I guess my reference point
Hmm.
is like Pandemic Legacy.
Yeah.
Those were good,
Yes. Yes.
tokens or good.
Oh,
How,
here's
how
a
do I want to say that? It had more impact when you opened whatever it was that you opened as opposed to whatever you're opening for Assassin's Creed here.
And I think the main difference is that's a good reference point because in Legacy, it's a new mechanic, and now you have this new rule set, a new mechanic you have to add to the game and change it up. In this one, it was just here's a character.
But that character had a skill that was maybe different
It did.
than. So I mean, it's not like it was just here's a new figure. It
Right.
was here's this guy. He can do this, and he'll help you in this way. But I don't think it was as impactful as like what you would get with Pandemic Legacy.
I agree with that. Yep.
It was still very cool. I mean, I liked him,
I
but
I did too.
I also, I guess like Nick was saying, his bar may have been super high, but I was just kind of like even keel the whole way through.
Yeah,
So.
I don't. That was not a problem for me. It didn't make my
Mhm.
list at all. At all. I do want to, but there's some mentions we never even used to be mentioned.
Yeah, we didn't use many things that we opened up. There were weapons we didn't use. There
Hmm.
were, I guess, your own like skills that you had a skill tree and you had to kind of pick out which ones you wanted to choose.
Yep,
So naturally, you don't get to pick all of them.
that's right.
So I mean, that kind of then goes back into replayability, which I know you want to talk about that at some point.
We can talk about it right now in a little
Okay.
bit because one thing I want to talk about is the treasure deck. So in this game, you have the ability to climb up on top of the tower and synchronize, which is really cool. I like that.
Which you were adamant. I'm going to synchronize. I'm going to find all the treasure and all the loot. And I don't care if that sets us up for failure. I'm going to go get it.
That's right.
I'm just glad the one time that you saw reason, we're like, no, let the loot expire. Like, it's not worth it.
Well, so that you go up there and generally find loot crates hidden on there. Other things about the map could change too, which is really really cool. I like that.
Hmm.
Now the treasure deck is interesting because it is a set of 5 cards. They come out regularly throughout the campaign, and you reveal. So if you go open a loot chest, you grab card 1. Open another loot chest, grab card 2, 3, so on and so forth. At some point, the game will tell you, okay, if you have any cards left in the loot deck, put them back in the box. Grab this new loot deck, and so this new treasure deck, I should say. And so it provided this fun tension, like, ooh, if I don't spend the time to get it, I might not see that card at all. And that's true for us.
It's gone forever.
It's gone forever, exactly. And so I really enjoyed that aspect of it. But my con is for replayability, it is always the set order. And it happens at these intervals. And so like if we were to play it again right now, like well, I kind of know what some of them are. I mean, in the future, I'll probably forget. My
Oh,
mind's
I'm
like,
totally going to forget. If you're like, Kim, in a year, we're going to play this game again, I'll be like, okay. I just would have to remember. Well, I would remember who my character was and her loadout. And
right.
as much as I loved how I built her, I would force myself to play somebody else and, try different things. But
So I think that's gonna, yeah, it's gonna tie into the replayability, right? And I think playing a new character will definitely be replayable. Like you're gonna see new missions potentially. You have new abilities, new strategy and tactic to pull out.
well, I think the only real change, other than tactics, would be like you have your individual character special mission
Hmm.
that you can go on, but I would say overall the missions are all going to be the same, right?
Well, correct. There's a few branches in there, but they're pretty minor branches.
Yeah, so I'd say the main point of the game is not going to change.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Strategically, maybe your character is going to
How you approach
do something
each,
else.
right? How you approach each is going to be different, but it's always going to be the same memory. But I think also the event deck is impactful enough where that will affect how you approach it. Because I know we played a few ones where we had a fortunate event popping up, like, oh man, this changes our strategy. We can now leverage something going on.
Well, yeah, no, there was like one or two missions where it went way too well, and because the
Hmm.
cards fell in our favor, so like probably yeah, we'd do it again. It wouldn't, it wouldn't end up that way. But yeah, Barrett, you do play too many games, you'd forget everything.
Yeah, for sure.
So funny.
Um, yeah, so that's aspect of his replayability. The envelopes work pretty well. So there's an envelope for every memory you play. It's actually really nice how it's laid out. It tells you on the card very clearly what you can look at, what you can't look at, and I felt like it played pretty nicely. The the other nice thing is all the cards are labeled, so you know which envelope it comes from. It's easy to put them back. It is a pain at the end of the campaign to put everything back. It's going to take time, guaranteed. But
Did you finish that already?
oh yeah, I put
Okay.
everything away.
See,
Everything's
he's
it's all
nice.
reset. It just took time. I expected it. Throughout the campaign, you will be putting things back. So it's not like you put everything back at the end, but you will have to put most of it back at some point.
Just reset.
To reset it. Yep. But it is resetable to play again. And speaking of the enemy variety, the big spoiler is you can play the whole campaign again with even stronger enemies.
Yeah, it's what do they call it, veteran mode or legendary
Legendary,
mode.
legendary mode.
So essentially, all your enemies just get upgrades, and so they're way stronger
Hmm.
and much harder to take down, and they're going to hit you a lot harder.
That's
So,
right.
but beyond that, I don't think they tweaked anything else, or did they?
No,
there's no like here's a bonus mission or anything like
no,
that.
no bonus missions or anything. Nope.
Okay.
So yeah, so replayability in this one is going to be not very high. It's going to be based upon I think it's going to be based upon the characters for sure, and I think
Yeah.
you're going to have. I feel confident saying you'll have two playthroughs of this for sure.
I yeah, I'd say two. Playing as a different character
Yeah.
and maybe up the
Difficulty,
difficulty.
and you'll see different things. You won't see everything in your first play.
Yeah. But I also like I'm gonna wait at least a year. If you want to play if you
Yes,
say, Kim, I want to play this campaign again, I'll be like, not right now.
I agree. I agree completely.
Um, Now, again, we've been comparing it to Pandemic Legacy, where I you can't play that one again. You're ripping up cards. You're
Correct.
okay. So I guess I answered my own question because I was like, would we play that game again? I'm like, no, that's physically impossible.
No, this is not a legacy game. It's just a campaign game.
Okay.
So, but you when you were playing this game early on the missions, I felt like replayability was felt low to you, and I don't know if you like the game as much as you do now.
Oh, I did. I was not fully on board. Like when we started, I was like, this is kind of blah. There's only two enemies. It seemed a little limited, but as you get into the game, you're building your character out, and that I think helps a lot for me because
Sure.
I like that aspect of games. I like RPGs in that sense, and just building out a loadout to my taste. Um,
And I think that's another important factor with this game because you have your innate ability on your assassin, and that you can do multiple times throughout the game. But all the skills you pick, I think all of them are once per memory. And so at the max level, you'll have four additional skills plus your innate, and those four additional skills are once per memory. So you don't have a lot of special abilities you can use in that
mhm.
sense. It I normally don't like once per game abilities like that, but it didn't really bother me in this one because I don't know if there were a lot of times where I want to do it more than once, with
Mhm.
like the exception of leg up, where I was able to you can help me over walls, like
Yeah,
the passive
I'd
walls.
boost you over a wall.
I mean that we would use all the time
We
for sure.
would. Maybe I just get tired. I can only do it once, Steve.
Fair
Gosh,
enough. Fair enough.
we're big people.
So
Oh,
yeah, that is
yeah.
one aspect of it.
Now, and like I said in the beginning, I still had fun playing, but I wasn't blown away by this game to start, and it did
Hmm.
get progressively better for me at the end.
And now you actually enjoyed it. You enjoyed the ending
Yeah,
quite a bit.
I did have a great time. Now that
Good.
being said, we got very lucky. Yeah, I mean, I think we should have died at some point in this campaign. I mean, actually, we did. There was one failure,
Yeah, we did replay once.
and we had to come back as the
Hmm.
apprentices,
Yep.
apprenti.
Sure.
Yeah, and so that was good to actually be able to see that side of it once.
Once.
But
We're done. All right.
so yeah, maybe we do need to do the veteran level next time or legacy level,
Legendary level.
whatever it
Yeah.
is, legendary.
Right.
Because yeah, we should not have killed Zeus or whoever that was way too easily.
I also think playing the character you did and only 2-player, it allowed us to do different tactics and strategy that you wouldn't normally be able to do with
Oh,
high player counts.
100%. Because like at the end there, this main enemy wouldn't attack the one player that was allowed up on the tower, and that was me. And then every other character, except for the one you were, would have been visible regardless, but you could hide.
That was the only character that could hide.
So I think our setup that way was beneficial.
Definitely.
So
So that's going to add a lot to the replayability, I think, because now you can come back with different characters, and that strategy is not going to work with a different player count or different characters. You're going to have to figure something else out, which is going to be quite fun. Yeah. We've gone through all the talking points I have written out, the ones I want to cover, but I want to go over the breakdown just to cover up or any holes we did in this discussion, and like one of the holes is set up and tear down. We'll talk about.
Which I have no experience with because I just make you do that.
You do. I do all the stuff and tear down every game. It was a decent amount. I'm not gonna lie. It wasn't super difficult to do, but it took me a good 20-30 minutes to do it. I'd say it's hard to judge because I'm setting up tech as we do it, but it's grabbing the miniatures, grabbing the tiles. The tiles here are pretty nice in the sense that they're kind of like V-Sabotage, not quite as easy as that one because you have 4 different types and it's easier one side or the other side to figure it out. So it's not too bad, but it is something. You will have to set up and tear down. And that's another reason why, if you are going to play this game, I would likely do 2 memories at a time because setting up the map is not difficult to do. Or since you got the miniatures don't change really, and your items don't really change. The only thing that changes really is the map.
Well, and your characters, you got to keep track of all that.
Yeah, but if you already have set up for one memory, it's going to be set up for the second memory.
Yeah, I know, but if you're putting it back every single game, that's kind of an annoyance.
Exactly. So yeah, that's where I think that this one would really shine to do multiple plays back to back, and it's short enough where you can definitely do that. Art and component quality. The art I think is great. I like the art.
Yeah.
I like how each tile had unique and individual features. There's very few tiles that are exactly the same. And so I had fun setting up, just like, ooh, I want to put the fountain over here, for example. It doesn't mean anything mechanically, but it was nice having that ability in there. And that's the same thing that's in V-Sabotage. I like that. If you don't care about it, you don't have to worry about it. But it was nice to have that ability. The miniature quality I thought was good. It was good.
Yeah, it was.
Definitely on the higher end, for sure.
Really nice. Now, we did talk about miniatures early and if they were necessary. And like we said, they're not. And I didn't even think about that huge tower that comes with this. We didn't even put that on the board and we had it.
Yeah.
Because it was just way too big.
Well, we didn't put it on there because of the camera system. It wouldn't work with the camera system we have.
That's true, but I probably wouldn't play with it anyway.
Depends. Yeah.
It's just way too
It's huge. It's cool. Don't get me wrong.
It is really cool.
Cool.
And wait, Barrett? Did you paint that? Are you still on? Or where's he painting?
He started painting. I don't know if he finished it.
I want to kind of know what it looks like, where you're at with it. So post it on Discord. I want to see where you are.
Yeah, Baron's like, make it work, Steve. You're a master. Make it work with the tower. So, yeah. But yeah, no, I have no complaints with art and component quality. I think it all worked out pretty well. I normally sleeve games. This one I did sleeve. It would be hard to put it back in the box with sleeves, to be honest. But I don't think it needs it either.
How can you not play with it? It's so fun to drop your mini off of it as a leap of faith.
True statement.
Yeah, I guess I haven't experienced that yet. I'll have to try it. I did you do jump your minis into the hay bale, so totally. I guess I missed out on the giant tower. That's okay.
Yeah, totally unnecessary, but it's cool factor for sure. That's something loved it. Rules weight. The rule book in this one was kind of unique because it doesn't have page numbers.
I never realized that.
Yeah, but it actually works pretty well still. My biggest complaint with the rules is I feel like there should have been a little bit more in it. I want a bigger rule book, but
okay. You're saying that as a man who will read rule books at night as your nighttime reading.
Fair enough.
So you're like, give me the dictionary book so I can read.
But and so actually, they did a good job with this one. I'm not gonna lie, because it's as you're going through the campaign book, the scenarios, it says, "Hey, and on this, go look at Rule 47." It's not a page number, but it's an actual bullet point in the rule book. It's all numeric, of course. So go to page 47, gives you there's
No,
some rules.
rule 47, not page 47.
Yeah, Rule 47. Thank
Yeah.
you. So it's actually easy to find stuff and look things up in that regard. So I did. I think the rules were fine. The weight of the rules, honestly, very easy.
This was an easy game to pick up and play.
I agree. I agree.
And I didn't go through the tutorial. So.
Well, I know you didn't need to do that, so.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hey,
it was an interesting way to lay it out. So for sure.
Yeah.
Um, gameplay weight. This one, I felt like the gameplay was heavier than the rules, but I don't think the gameplay was heavy.
No.
I think it's medium. I would probably say.
Yeah, that's fair because you can complicate it with tactics.
You can
and like really get creative, or you can just kind of brute force your way in there. Which I had started brute force, and then I got a little sneakier. I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You just want to beat things down for the start.
I loved that mace. I mean, it was just.
Yeah, I think the gameplay is fine in this one. I enjoyed it. I don't have any complaints with the gameplay weight. It was a lot. Like I said, that was my number one. Honestly, tying into the opportunities you can do. So often we felt clever. Like, ooh, let's do this, let's do that, and that would change based on your characters and the events that came out. It would not be the same each time.
That's true. That's true.
Difficulty. This one's a tough one to talk about, I think, because it's going to change. I think in the earlier memories, difficulty is on the higher end. Not high, on the higher end. I'll probably say like medium. I think a little bit in the beginning it got hard, difficult, but it didn't stay difficult. It got back down to like medium difficulty.
I think that can vary drastically.
I would agree with that.
Because in the beginning it's not a hard game to play, but you're limited because of your character loadout. You don't really, I know we're, assassins and we're masters, but we're still like, I guess, fresh out of assassin school, so we didn't have a whole lot, and that made it hard because you're, like you said, your villains are constant the entire gameplay,
right?
With the exception of when the bosses come out. So I guess once you get up to kind of a more even playing field to your, regular bad guys, then yeah, by then your loadout's kind of up there and it's easier. But again, if your events come out, you can get screwed.
I don't want to say get screwed. I don't think it would define the game for you, but you can get lucky and unlucky in some cases. But I don't think it would ever win the game or lose the game for you.
Well, there were games where we got lucky and the enemies were always like on the other side of the board and we just kind of walked on through and it was a breeze to the point where we thought we cheated and did something wrong.
That's true, because you could get lucky with the enemy movement for sure, because the enemies will move randomly unless you are next to them and you're visible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually pretty easy to avoid them if you need to. This one, so that drops the difficulty down lower. And I think towards the end, there was a few memories that were difficult, but most of them, there was a lot of them that we felt like were on the easier side. So I think starts with medium, it gets a little more difficult, and then it drops down to the easier standpoint.
Again, I think it was the way we built out the characters and your characters, and just having two players, and I think we kind of broke the major boss guy at the end because of the way that we were set up. So right. I think if we did it again with different characters, I think it could be different.
We'll have to revisit this then.
In a year. I'm going to wait a year.
So difficulty is a little bit of a mixture for people. Mm-hmm. For a type of cooperation level, this gets into replayability a little bit. So options within the game session, like how much variety do you have within the game? A lot can be different with the events and the items and the equipment you pick up from drops. That can change it. Variety between game sessions. Not a whole lot.
Mission variety is not very different.
No, well, it's okay. It's okay. Well, it's not like V-Sabotage.
What type of mission did you have? You had your basic. No, I'm just drawing brain farts. Go from point A to point B, right? You had to escort somebody. You had to make sure a boss didn't go somewhere, and then you had to just kill a boss. That was
Well,
right?
that's probably oversimplifying it a bit, I think. I mean, yes. I mean, every game's like that though too.
I guess,
I mean,
yeah.
that's no different than any game out there. But like, there's remember the one with the horsemen that travel around, for example, and the
Well,
other
that
ones
was.
were
I think that's just uh, enemy variety. That wasn't really a.
well, the map was laid out that way too.
Okay.
To
Okay.
allow that. And so that happened, and then taking out the spawn points, for example, protecting the headquarters was really cool. So I think there's definitely some cool variety in there, um, but I don't think there's a lot of variety. I feel like other games have bigger swings of scenario variety than this
In the
one.
missions, is
In
what
the
you're saying.
missions,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
It's
And
good, but not great. Let's put it
yeah,
that way.
yeah. I was still entertained.
Yeah.
And Ryan, yeah, I completely agree. The final boss was negated by our builds. Again, I was just a tank and you were invisible. And I'm like, I'm gonna go hide up on this tower because he can't get me, and you're just running around dropping a bomb. And I think that was also a little cheat, even though it wasn't cheating, but it felt like a loop that we kind of broke where you
Yeah.
could let's put the bomb, have him go there, and then he doesn't take his retaliation action or whatever it was and
But
kill
that gets
us.
back to my number one point, like being able to feel clever. Like I felt like we were really clever making that work. So
We're so smart.
I know. So yeah, that and got lucky. So with the build for sure, I
Yes.
think that's true. We got very lucky with the rules.
Oh
Absolutely.
yeah.
Which is another thing we did talk about the dice rolls. It's like a 50-50 chance for enemies hitting you, and then it's not quite a 50-50. It's a 2/3 chance to hit them back. I
Yeah.
think.
I mean,
So
odds are they should mostly be in your favor,
right.
particularly when you have your weapons that you're getting and your skill traits that are coming out. And like Alexandra's skill where I can turn misses into, critical hits, that was awesomely insane.
Mm-hmm.
So,
The one thing I will talk about is the lost conditions. One of the lost conditions is running out of miniatures, and I felt like there was 2 or 3 memories where that was a risk, but most of them I don't think that was a problem.
no, I don't think so.
And the main thing is once a spawn area is filled, because you only have 4 enemies in a spot, they just won't spawn. And so it was almost a good thing to have a lot of enemies on the board in that sense, as long as you weren't
Well,
near them.
if you weren't near them, and there were some, you know, event cards that say, "Hey, take a ladder away,"
Right,
and the enemies can't climb up and down roofs, so you could
right.
pull a ladder out, and then that means they had, in order to get out of the spawn point, maybe they had to only go west, and so you'd have to wait for that card to come up. So you can definitely tinker and move things around in your favor.
Definitely. Yeah, and the last point is talk about the value of this game. This game, it's a hard one to recommend because it's so expensive.
But like you said, you don't need the minis,
Correct.
and then it's more reasonable.
I would say so. I think the retail version of this game was very smart. Like you said, you like the minis. They added to the gameplay for you, but
But if they weren't an option to start, like, if you would have said, "Here's some of the tokens," it's just like the sabotage or whatever, I would have been like, "Okay, cool, let's do this."
right, exactly.
But they're nice.
Yeah.
But again, we also didn't use the giant tower.
Fair enough. But yeah, so that is the breakdown of the game. We went through a lot of the discussions. So we got the top 5 up front. There's a spoiler section right now. So hopefully that was enough for you guys. If you guys have any other questions, head over to our Discord. We're very active there. You can ask any questions you want about the game. We'll help you out if you have.
Any other thoughts and comments this evening? Because I
That's
feel
right.
like you just transitioned very quickly to, all right, we're out, peace. So,
For sure.
yeah.
Well, yeah. Do you have what's your final thoughts on this one?
I had an evolution playing this campaign.
Okay.
Like we said in the beginning, I was like, this is too simple. There's not enough going on. But then as you build out your characters and you keep going, it got better. And I had a great time. I still had a great time the whole campaign because I love playing games with you.
No, I do too. Thank you.
Yes. Aw. And, but yeah, it got better for me.
Okay.
Would I turn around and play this again immediately? Heck no.
Fair enough.
Not even a different character. No, I don't want to.
Well, not for another year at least.
Give me a year.
Yeah.
And then we'll come back to it.
Right. Yep. And I agree with that. Like this was my game of the year for 2021. I picked that one because I love the opportunity to feel clever in this one. It was just so fun to figure that out. I'm gonna bring that up all the time.
Really, like, let me just. There you go. Pat you on the back, Steve.
Well, no, it was clever for both of us, though, right?
No, I'm just teasing.
Yeah,
It was fun, and it's always. I mean, that's kind of why you play games, anyways. You want to be challenged. You want to get a good light bulb moment and be like, aha, have that
Exactly.
little victory. Otherwise, you just, you don't really. I don't like playing games that always beat me down and are just depressing.
Right.
There's a game out there and I can't remember what it was, but all you guys were talking about it, and it's like, was it Barrett who's always glutton for punishment or something? But
KDM probably.
yeah,
Kingdom Death
yeah,
Monsters
I
probably.
don't know. But this game, it wasn't that. So
Yeah. Barrett has a question here actually. He says, "Do you feel there could be a downward spiral with multiple deaths for each mission?" I don't think so, because if you do die, you come back as the apprentice assassin, and that assassin, you can't use your hidden blade to take out enemies,
but
but you have all but your highest skills available to you.
yeah, they're not as good. So
Right.
like he's saying, would you get in the cycle of doom? Could you get stuck?
I don't think so, because it's not as good as your main character. You don't have your innate ability, and you only have your skill 1 and 2, and you don't have your hidden blade. But that's the only differences. You have
Those
everything
are
else.
significant.
I mean, it's significant. I
It's
agree.
okay.
But the thing is, you're not going to play that one very long, because while your assassin's not in the game, they'll be healing quickly in the hospital.
Okay, so say you die, you're an apprentice, you
Yep.
lose again. Does your main guy come back?
No, your main guy only comes back when they're healed.
How many heals do they do in the? Oh, never mind.
It took us one.
I
It took us
remember.
one memory to do it,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it wasn't a big deal.
Okay, I
Yeah.
can agree with that.
So I don't think don't think that's gonna be a problem. And honestly, it's the official rules are, if you fail a memory, you replay it once and then you move on.
So you can fail forward.
You can't fail forward. Yes.
We never fail
No.
forward.
No. Thanks, Baron. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah. Thanks.
But yeah, so my thoughts. This was my game of the year, and I said that because of like I said, those moments were awesome for me. I did have cons for this game, absolutely. Even back then, there were issues with this, and those issues never changed. Like the enemy variety was a big one, and the tutorial missions just drove me nuts. Those I don't think are those stuck with me for the whole game, of course. But I still really enjoyed this one. There's a lot of fun. I love stealth games though, and V Sabotage is
Really,
excellent.
yeah.
And this one was a good evolution of that system to put it into a very focused campaign. And that's the other con. Like this one, you really can't play it standalone. It really has to be a campaign. You can maybe pull out a memory and play that one.
I don't know.
Maybe
I don't know how you would do that because
that'd be hard,
you've accomplished so much. Like if you jump into the middle of the campaign,
right?
like how do you compensate for all that you just ignored?
I don't know if you can. It'd be really really
Maybe
tough.
there's a thread on BBG Con or BGG Con.
BGG, Board Game Geek.
Yeah, I don't know how do you do that, but I think that's also the fun part of the campaign is right.
Agreed.
You're in it for the long haul.
Agreed.
You know.
Yep. Yep. But yeah, so I think this one was excellent, really fun. I do recommend it. I do definitely recommend checking out the retail version for this one
Yep.
when it comes out. I don't know when it's coming out exactly, but it's worth a look for sure.
I'd say if you like campaign games. The other
Correct.
thing too with the campaign is it's what do you say, linear? Like
Yes, it's
I
linear.
completely agree with that. If you want to be able to like kind of go off on your own and do things, you are not going to be doing that.
Correct.
Your variety is going to come in how you're building out your character, and that is it.
That and how you approach each memory.
Well, your tactics that you
Correct.
play in that specific
Right.
mission, but
Right.
that's only, hey, I'm going to win or lose this mission. That has no impact on what else is going to happen to your campaign.
Agreed.
So some people might want more variety than that.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's very true. Okay, we've been talking for a long time, but I think that's about wraps it up. Anything else you got?
I feel good. I had fun. Ryan, I agree. There were some great moments.
Mm-hmm.
And well, actually, like we said, you are getting one of these bigatures. So you just tell me if you want it painted white or left gray, and I can do that. So I think, yeah, like we said, Dan, Ryan, and my brother Ryan also actually just wanted one. So we'll
cool.
be good.
That's gonna end it. Yeah, it's gonna end it for this campaign. I had a lot of fun playing with it. So we'll move on to another campaign soon. So
Well, we've been talking about season 0,
Mhm.
and I want to play that one because, gosh, it's been so long since we played Panda. That was over on Twitch.
Yeah.
When we did
Season
two.
2. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
That'll be coming soon. So if you guys have any suggestions, let us know. But thanks for listening to the review, and we'll see you at the guys' next stop.
Wait, awkward pauses. Are you sure? Do you feel good?
I feel good.
You're at a good ending point?
I'm at a good ending point.
All right. Okay. Well, thanks everybody for watching.
See you the next time. Bye bye.
Bye.